Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Leadership Satsang. I'm your leadership coach, Yukti Kapoor Medirata. Thank you so much for joining me live. Right now, as always, it's 8 o'clock Tuesday evening, Indian Standard Time, and I'm really happy to connect with you all once again, talking about something that really matters a lot to all of us, and that is how to mind the mind. How many of you are keen to know that? Let me see how many of you really want to learn how to mind the mind. As they say, all that matters is what's on your mind, right? So is it really important for us to then learn how to mind the mind? Let me see how many of us are here live with me to understand what this mind is all about. The mind over matter, the mind that adds or takes away the quality of our life, the mind that should be suppressed, and some of us say it's the mind that needs to be enhanced. For some it's a friend, for some it's an enemy. There are many versions of what the mind is it the hero of our movie, or the villain, is something we're going to discover together. But before we get started, let's bring ourselves to this moment with Om chant. And as I've said before, Om chant is not a religious chant. It is, in fact, a complete word in itself that brings in three syllables. And as we go deeper with this chant, it helps us to align all the chakras inside of our body that connects us to our core. So let's do this together. And for that, I would request you to sit somewhere comfortably with your spine straight and shoulders relaxed. And close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in and gently breathe out. Take another deep breath in. And as you breathe out, we'll start reciting the chant Om. Let's do it 3 times together. And I would encourage you to do it for at least 10 minutes every day if you can. So let's get started and let's do this together. Nice deep breath in. Pick up your palms, place them gently on your face, your eyes, and let's come back to this moment. Now tell me if you're here with me in this moment, so that we can get the most from these 30 minutes that we're going to spend together talking about the mind. Are you here with me? If yes, then let's have I'm here from your location. So I'm here from Mumbai, I'm here from Kolkata or Dubai or US or wherever you are, whichever part of the world you're in. Let's have that in the chat so that I can welcome you all for the session. I can see Sanjay here, Rajat is here. Hi Hemant. Hi Bharat. So good to have you all. Hi Krishna, good to have you here today. Practice mindfulness, challenge negative thoughts, self-care, more importantly, seek help when needed most, Sanjay. Okay, you're already ready with some tips on how to mind the mind. I quite like that, and all of it is so true. But I just kind of want to go deeper into our understanding of what mind is today before we jump into the how, because I believe that the how is the easiest thing to deal with. What we really need to understand is the what and the why in most of the cases. Hi, Harish, you're joining us from Hyderabad. How good to have you. You're lovely. Hi, Ashish from Pune. Haritha, very good evening. Wonderful. Bharat, you're from Kanpur. Of course, I know. There are a few people I'm getting kind of used to who are always here, and I love that. And I do request you to always keep making time to join me live for these sessions. It's so encouraging, and it also makes me believe that the kind of topics that we are picking up are important for you. They're adding value to you. That's the whole idea of putting together this platform called Leadership Satsang. So, with that, let's get started with this adventure called the mind. जो किसी के लिए दोस्त है, किसी के लिए दुश्मन है. कोई बोलता है mind is what destroys you. कोई बोलता है mind matters the most. So it's important that we understand what is mind. As much as there is a brain, and we all know brain is an organ, we can't really place mind anywhere in our body. And so it's a bit of a mystery for a few people to understand what is mind. It's been some time now that I've been so fascinated with neuroscience and quantum physics that the more I learn about it, read about it, the more I'm in awe of this mystical space called quantum field and mind and consciousness, words that we use very loosely without understanding what it is. And I'm just going to put out some basic understanding of these words, and then I will leave it to you and your curiosity to go deeper and explore more. So, here is the thing about the brain and the mind. As I said, mind is still something that we are trying to figure out and we're trying to place. We don't know which part of the body is called mind, but we do know that brain is an organ. Brain is an organ that sits right in your skull, and that for us is our hardware. If brain is the hardware, then mind is our software. So, brain is an organ and mind is brain in action. So, how our mind functions is a reflection of how well our brain is developed. Now, what we all are aware of, and as much as it's a very recent discovery or understanding through research that it's established by neurophysicists, uh, is to say that our brain can be developed forever, till whatever time, and no matter what age you're at in your life right now, if you consciously do a few things, you can develop your brain and its ability to think and increase your what we call as intelligence quotient. Unlike a popular belief which lasted till long some time back only, that our IQ develops only till the age of 5 or 7. Now we have enough and more evidence and research to prove that it's not true. Our brain develops for as long as we are actively doing a few things, consciously doing a few things to challenge our brain and establish those new neuron connections in the brain that increases our intelligence. Now, when we learn how to mind our mind, is when we are aware of how well has the brain developed for us, for me as a human, for you as a human. Now, if you want to change a few things about the way you think, it will automatically change the way you feel, and that changes the way you act, and then that changes the way we experience whatever we experience in life. Now, all that is being supported by the brain, but it is put into action as we see it and feel it and experience it by the mind. So that is a very simplistic version of what a brain is and what mind is. So I want to spend some time with you establishing the understanding, and then bringing in our ability to be aware of what the mind is up to, and then learn how to observe the mind. How to mind the mind requires us to first observe what the mind is up to. So let's start with a little bit of understanding and going one level deeper. Now, consciousness is what plays between the brain and the mind, right? The conscious state that we understand ourselves to be. Now, it's broadly categorized into subjective consciousness and objective consciousness. Subjective consciousness is what stems from the part of our brain called neocortex. Neocortex is this helmet, this outer part of our brain, This is neocortex. It's also called as a new brain. This is where our conscious mind resides, which is just 5% of our brain. The balance 95% stems from objective consciousness, which is what is developed in your midbrain and cerebellum and your brain stem. This is what we call as a subconscious mind, which is 95% of our mind. Now, what does the conscious mind do for us? Conscious mind is what we understand as the educated mind. Whatever we learn, the ability to learn, to remember, to explore, to dream, to create, to choose, everything that we think we are doing, knowing that we're doing it, comes from the conscious mind. It is the you as you understand yourself to be. The self-conscious identity that you have created for yourself is what your conscious mind tells you about you, whether it is about your physical appearance or your mental abilities or your emotional capabilities. All of this is understood and told to us, and hence becomes a part of what we call as a self identity through a conscious mind. And then there is a subconscious mind. Now, a subconscious mind is what processes things that are happening at a cellular level in the body without your conscious mind thinking about it. So you're not consciously thinking how you're going to pump blood in every cell of your body right now. You're not consciously thinking about taking another breath or ensuring that your heart is still beating. It is all happening on its own, and it's run by the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is behind everything that we take for granted. And it's also believed to be the innate intelligence, or what we call as a universal intelligence, or the life force. Now, when we start bringing in consciousness about the way we think, is when we are more aware of what we are unconscious about. So, to be aware of your unawareness is the best way to enhance your awareness. Does it make sense? So I need to first be aware of what I'm unaware of. I need to be aware of the fact that I am aware only to a certain extent. There is a limit to my awareness. And when I challenge that limit, when I go deeper with my awareness, is when I bring in some more light into that space of unawareness. So I heard something very, very beautiful recently, and I'm going to share that with you. It says, the past is what's gone, where we are most of the times. We spend a lot of time in the past. And that tells us a lot about who we understand ourselves to be. And basis that, we create future, or we think we create future. The future that we create basis our understanding of the past is a predictable future. Why is it predictable? Because that gives us a sense of safety and security, because we as humans are terrified of change and the unknown. The only unknown is the present moment, because the present is so short in its span that it doesn't give any time to our conscious mind to bring the past into this moment. But it's much easier for us to pick this past and extrapolate it to what the future will look like. I've come from here, so I can only go till there. I have done this much, so I can only achieve that much more. Or whatever other limiting beliefs that we are suffering with stems from the experiences from the past. Are you with me so far? Just say with you in the chat box if you're with me so far, with the understanding of what is the mind and what is the role that the conscious and the subconscious mind plays for us. What are their the benefits or the value that they're adding to our life? Because till we understand that, there is no point jumping into anything in the space of how to mind the mind. Let's first understand what the mind is. You with me? Mala is with me. Super. Let me see if the others are still with me. Are you following what I'm saying so far? Hi, Devendra. Good to have you here. Are you with me? Super. All right. So now let's go one step further. Now that we understand that the mind is broadly divided into the subconscious and the conscious mind, let us see what is the awareness we can bring in this space of mind. So what we need to be aware of the most is the way these neuron connections get built in the brain. The hardware behind the software called the mind is created with repetition, and when it comes to negative thoughts, with overthinking. I want to spend some time on negative thoughts because the moment we talk about minding the mind or mind per se, we get worried about the way our mind functions because our mind drags us towards negativity. We tend to stay with negative thoughts a lot more and for much longer than positive thoughts. In fact, it takes a lot of conscious effort to keep reminding ourselves, stay positive, stay positive, think positive. We know that, but we need those reminders. Why? Because we feel that the moment we stop reminding ourselves of this, the negative thoughts are going to take over the space, isn't it? Now, there is a lot of argument around how many thoughts do we get in a minute, irrespective of the number. The fact is that there are endless thoughts that cross our mind while we are awake. And then we are in the state of dream where another set of thoughts take over, and that's a discussion for another time. But till such time you are awake, your mind is never free from thoughts. The more you bring in the awareness about these thoughts, the easier it gets for us to direct these thoughts to our benefit. Use these thoughts as power because these thoughts are repetitive. And what I'm trying to bring your attention to is the fact that repetition is what creates stronger neuron connections. So let me give you an example. If you learn a language, say French, and you've just started learning it, you realize that you have a knack to learn languages, you're picking it faster than four other people who join these classes with you, and then after some time you get busy with other things and you stop practicing French. For a week or 2 weeks you might still have a faint recollection of what you learned. About a month or 2 months later you would not remember much of it. 1 year down the line you wouldn't know anything about the language. And that is because there wasn't enough practice or repetition that could create those neuron connections, which could then be converted into a memory that sits in our brain for a long time. And that's what we call as or refer to as intelligence or acquired knowledge. Are you with me so far? So, if we need to expand our ability to think or develop our brain to another level so that we can be more productive, we can add more value and contribute or learn faster, we need to remember that repetition is a very, very important element of learning. It helps us to strengthen those neuron connections, which is what causes the development of the brain, and that is what supports our mind, the software. Right? Now, what do we do with this overthinking? When we bring in awareness to anything that is not working for us, is similar to throwing light at the darkest corner of your room. If you want to scan the room that you've stepped into and there is no light, and you don't know whether you will be safe here or not, the safest thing to do, or the most important thing to do, or something that will come to you as a reflex, would be to find a way to put some light, get some light and throw some light. And that is what takes the darkness away, isn't it? And when that light is thrown is when we are able to see things for the way they are. That's exactly how awareness works. Overthinking cannot be managed or dealt with till such time we are consciously aware of the fact that we are indulging in overthinking. The line between thinking and overthinking is not very clearly defined. It's not the same for all. It is only for you to know when you've crossed that line. When you are not just thinking anymore, but you are overthinking. You are engaged to a point where you're not having that control on yourself to stop. That awareness in itself is a victory of your mind. And every single time you bring in the awareness of a thought that doesn't serve you is the moment of victory for your mind to realize its own power. Are you following what I'm saying? To say following you, if you're following what I'm saying, let's just have that in the chat box before I go any further. Are you Are you getting the essence of what I'm trying to share here with you? And then I will tell you how to deal with negative thoughts. And I think that will be a huge, huge takeaway, because I don't want to just tell you do these 5 things and you will stop overthinking, or you'll be able to manage negative thoughts. I want to first tell you how to be aware of those negative thoughts. And as I shared with you 5 types of negative thoughts, it'll become much easier for you to be aware and point out in your mind, to your mind, that all right, here, this thought that just crossed my mind was negative, and this is this type of negative thought. Let's play with that. So let's bring in some playfulness here, guys, because life is not as serious as we make it to be, especially when it comes to self discovery. Self discovery can be a lot of fun as long as you are playful about this whole process. Let's just be a little playful about understanding where the mind is taking me, and then catch it there and say, all right, hello, I don't want to go there. I want to go there. I don't want to do this. I want to do that. You call the shots. You take charge. But before you learn how to do that, you need to understand who to take charge from. What is this mind up to before I learn how to mind it? Let's first be aware of what the mind is up to. And I am going to spend this session, invest this session on negative thoughts, because I believe that that is the biggest concern we have when it comes to not having that control, not being able to take that charge over our mind, because our mind just saps down our energy with all the negative thoughts that come from the past and the things happening around us, the external environment, the people, and this and that. So, what I'm about to share are 5 different types of negative thoughts. And I want you to make a note of this. And I want you to start playing with your mind from this moment on. Whenever you're aware of any such thought crossing your mind, think of the name, the term that I gave you for that kind of thought, and place it there as a label on the forehead of that thought. That, okay, here, this is the kind of thought that's crossing my mind. And then I will tell you a way to reframe that frame. So, first, we've got to see the frame within which that thought is showing up. And what is that thought? What is the name? Let's give a name to it. Let's give a category to it. And then we will learn how to reframe this thought, how to get out of that negative space towards being more positive or more balanced. Okay, are you ready? Then say BIO, bring it on in the chat box. Let's say BIO, and then I will take you through these 5 types of negative thoughts. Interesting question you asked, Ashish, about dreams and how that becomes a part of your conscious mind. It's actually part of the subconscious mind, and there's so much more to talk about dreams and how that plays around in our subconscious mind. So let's pick that up for another session. But for now, I want to leave you with some very tangible things to do, a clear action plan, so that you know you are practicing ways to mind the mind, especially negative thoughts. Okay, BIO. Do I see a lot of BIO in the comments? I guess I do. Harita, Devendra, Bharat, Raj, Rajat, super. Let's get started. I want you to make a note of this as I take you through it, because research proves when we write what we learn, then we retain it much better. And that's a very, very good motivation to write, even if you don't go through it ever again. How interesting is that? Right? So let's make a note of these 5 types of negative thoughts I want you to start observing about yourself. The first is called as stewing. Stewing is when you repeat a negative experience or thought in your mind again and again and again. Oh, that customer wrote a nasty feedback for me, and that felt really bad. And I'm with that feedback again and again. And it happened 2 hours back, and I'm still with it. It happened 4 hours back, and I'm still with it. This happened in the morning. We're right now in the evening, almost end of the day, and it's still repeating in my head. A repetitive negative experience or a negative thought is what we call as stewing. How do we overcome this? How do we reframe this? By replacing it with a happy thought. Any happy thought, anything that brings happiness to you. It could be from the same day, it could be something way back in the past. It could be something in the future that you're working towards and you're super excited about it and you just want to think more about that. See, remember one thing, there is energy all around us, but energy is limited. As much as energy is not destroyed, it is transformed, isn't it? So, whatever energy that we have, we need to consciously decide where we want to spend this energy. Because wherever we put our attention is where the energy flows. So, wherever your attention goes is where energy flows. Now, you have to decide what you want to pay attention towards. How much time do you have in life to sulk and waste your energy? Or would you rather channelize that energy more constructively and put it in a direction where it adds value to your life? The choice is yours. It's an absolute choice. As much as you might think that you're helpless about it, you're not. It's your choice to indulge. It's your choice to cut it short and move on. I'm telling you what is the method. Now, the practice of this method is your part of the deal. Fair? So, if you are stuck with repetitive thoughts, negative thoughts, or action, how do you reframe that? By consciously thinking about something happy. And then move on with what you need to do in that present moment. So, this is called stewing. The second type of negative thought is called magnifying. Now, magnifying is when we exaggerate something in our head or overgeneralize it. For example, somebody broke my trust, and I tell myself, I'm just a big fool. I don't know. I don't know how to judge people. Everyone breaks my trust. This happens to me all the time. And I just make this my truth, even though it's not true. I have enough evidence to prove to myself that there are these four other people in my life who've not broken my trust. And I could understand these people really well. In fact, I feel blessed and lucky to have such friends or people in my family. But the moment something bad happens, my mind feels compelled to generalize this as my truth. See, here you go. This is what happens. Everybody breaks my trust. Nobody is worth trusting. Or an absolute exaggeration of something that has happened. Now, a small mistake I will make, and I will exaggerate it in my head and make it so big that it looks like this huge mountain I need to climb. And that's where I surrender to my mind, saying, okay, now I will sulk in this space for as long as I don't get tired enough to move on. Or I decide that I'm going to conserve my energy and not exaggerate and not generalize things. Instead, allow myself to make mistakes and practice self forgiveness. Yes, I could have done better there. Yes, I made a mistake in my understanding of this person. I could have dealt with the situation in a better way. And here is what I'm learning, and let me move on with that learning. Because if this has happened to me, which is negative, then that has happened as well in the past, which is an absolute contrast. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So if I've done this as bad as I think I have, there are times I've done something in the similar situation in a much better way. And I need to remind myself of that. And that is what helps me to make mistakes whenever I make mistakes and bring in self forgiveness so that I can draw the learnings I need to and move on. Remember, the mantra is this: wherever your attention goes is where your energy flows. Now you decide what you want to pay attention to, where you want to divert your limited energy. So you know what is stewing and what does magnifying look like. Two types of negative thoughts to play with. Remember, we are here to play with our mind, not to judge, not to tame, not to train, no nothing. No pressure, right? Nothing to prove here. We are just trying to understand a very, very big part of who we are. That is the software of our brain, our mind. So when we see our mind indulging in stewing thoughts, which means repetitive negative thoughts, we replace it with happy thoughts. When we see our mind magnifying a situation, we say, hang on, you know what? Okay, I made a mistake, and this is what I learned, and I'm ready to move on. And then there are three more to go. The third type of negative thought is all or nothing mindset, right? Where you can't see gray, where it is right or wrong, binary thinking. If this is right, then everything else has to be wrong. If this is good, then that is bad. If I'm right, then you have to be wrong. Right? So there is no midway. That if that is what we are stuck with as a negative thought, then to reframe that, we need to consciously bring in more flexibility. We need to remind ourselves of the fact that it is hardly ever all or nothing. There is so much in between, which is a matter of perspective. There is nothing called a universal right or a universal wrong. My right could be your wrong, and your right could be my wrong. True? Is it true? Do you agree with that? Just say agree in the comments if you agree with what I'm saying about nothing being a universal right. Now, even if it is at a moral level, morals are defined by our upbringing and our experiences, isn't it? Our education, like everything that's gone behind making us who we are, is what has helped us to define our morals. There are people who would say that if children don't listen to you, then you do what you need to do to the child at a physical, mental, emotional level, because after all, it's for their good. And then there'll be other people who will put their hand up to say this is not the right way to do it, not the right way to do it. That is a right way to deal with the child. There are always multiple perspectives, and that will always remain, because each one of us comes with our own world into this world. So when we're trying to understand people, we need to see which world they come from. That's the real meaning of empathy, by the way. A lot of people claim to understand what it is, but very few really understand it. It's not just about getting into the other person's shoes. It's about being able to see their worldview, which is formed with a lot of things behind it. It's not as straightforward, but it becomes simpler as you bring in the intention to understand people. That intention in itself is so powerful that it allows you to shift from your perspective and allow others' perspectives to come in. And hence, there is no universal right or universal wrong. Now, let's look at the fourth category of negative thought. And this is a fortune telling mindset, right? Now, fortune telling mindset says, oh, you know what? Now I know what's going to happen next. Or I know what is going on in this person's head. I know what this person is thinking. Does it happen? Something wrong has happened, and then you just start imagining, oh, okay, now, I like this person, and my friend told him he must be thinking that I'm this kind of a girl, that kind of a girl. They're thinking like this, they're thinking like that. You have no idea. Maybe that person is not thinking about you at all. But your mind starts cooking these very, very interesting filmy stories, and they are so engaging that you are just sucked into them big time. Oh yeah, they're thinking this, and then what should I do next, and how should I behave in the next situation when we're together? Or fortune telling, this will happen, and then that will happen, and then they will do this, and then I will say that, and then that will follow, and then it will result into this. Do you do that? Have you ever caught yourself doing this fortune telling? It's so normal. It's just normal because we've kind of gotten used to hanging around with these negative thoughts more than we've realized. This whole story that cooks up in your head is nothing but a negative thought taking over, because nothing of it is real. It is just a figment of your own imagination. And because this imagination is negative, it is bringing in negative feelings. And that negative feeling will compel you to take negative actions, which will create a negative experience. So if we don't want it to be led in that direction, we need to first identify that this is a negative thought and there is a way to reframe this thought, because it's not true. How do I reframe that? If I can imagine that something bad is about to happen and I have that ability, I can use the same ability to imagine something good that will happen. I can assume a positive outcome. Oh, I like this person, and my friend just told him that I like him. Maybe now that person, maybe what that person is thinking is that I have the courage to express my feelings. Maybe that person likes me back. Right? Now, if I feel that way, and if I think that way, it makes me feel more positive. And it's not being positive for the heck of it. Being positive allows you to broaden your mind and accept more uh, perspectives. and be more open to situations that you will face. A negative mindset is very narrow in its horizon. It assumes and expects one kind of a result, preparing you for the worst, and in the process, taking away all the energy that you might need to actually face the real situation when you're there. And that's why there is merit in doing this whole exercise. And again, let me remind you, do it playfully. Have fun as you identify your mind becoming a fortune teller, getting into the all or nothing mode, magnifying things, making it blow out of proportion, or stewing when you're just going on and on and on and on with repetitive negative thoughts, or personalization, where you feel that whatever bad is happening around is because of me. So I'll share this with you. Recently, in my office, I had a bit of a disagreement or argument, if you may say, with one of the service guys, the admin guys. And the next morning, the security guard who usually runs to get my bag, and he'll open the door for me and all of that with all his respect and humility, he just didn't leave his chair the next morning. Okay, and he saw me, but he didn't get up. And I said, "Good morning." And he said, "Good morning, madam." And he just kept sitting. And I opened the door and I kind of went in. And a part of my mind said, "Oh, so these guys have had an internal discussion, and he's also judging me. Everybody's judging me here. I was not wrong in the way I said. It was a wrong thing. I had to stand up for myself. And it's not as if I'm making an unreasonable argument. So why is the security guard getting involved in these kind of things?" Can you imagine, right? So in my head, I'm like, okay, there is some conspiracy going on here, or what? Everybody is against me, and the mind's on and on and on, making another very interesting Bollywood story, until I reminded myself of the fact that I'm taking this too personally. It's nothing to do with me. And that is how you reframe this mind, saying, you know what, it has nothing to do with me. Maybe this guy is dealing with something in his head. Maybe it's a bad start of the day for him. I don't know. But what I know is it has nothing to do with me. And that is such a big sigh of relief you will experience when you look at things from a distance more objectively, when you don't personalize anything and everyone's behavior towards you as if you are the cause for it. You must have done something to deserve it. It's got nothing to do with you. It's your mind that is taking you towards that negative thought. The more you practice catching your mind, the easier it gets for you to mind your mind. And with that, let me do a very, very quick recap of what I've talked about today. And I want to know from you all, how useful was this sharing for you? And what are you taking away specifically from this session of how to mind your mind? We talked about what brain and mind is. How do we understand consciousness and the two elements of consciousness, objective and subjective, leading to subconscious mind and conscious mind? Being aware of what the mind is up to is what helps us to understand and mind our mind. So, repetition is what makes these experiences more real and creates memories, and overthinking is what sucks our energy and gets us stuck in that place in our mind, which is what we call as negative thoughts. And that's where I elaborated 5 categories of negative thoughts: stewing, which is repeating a negative thought; magnifying, which is exaggerating a thought; all or nothing is right or wrong; fortune telling is when you try to predict the future that hasn't yet happened; and personalization is when you think whatever is happening is because of you, even though it has nothing to do with you. So, would love to know, how was this session for you? Which one of these negative thoughts do you often catch? And which ones are relatively new for you that you will now keep in mind and play with? Remember to play with this. And as you go around enjoying this play, you will, in the process, automatically learn in a very gentle and loving way how to mind your mind. A lot more on this in the sessions to come. I hope this was useful. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Means a lot. I'll see you real soon.